What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. This is episode 218, and in today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Don Williams, who is the head of operations at Sports Recruiting USA. So this episode is a literal masterclass in recruiting. So if you're an athlete in high school or in middle school who wants to play college sports, please tune into this episode. Grab your notebook, grab your parents. There's so much valuable information here where we dove into the biggest myths in the recruiting industry. We talked about how there's a lot of misinformation out there, and Don made it really simple and clear about some of those myths. And we brought a lot of truth and light to those things. And he really gave a lot of tangible action items in this episode too that you can take and use to help you along your recruiting journey. So if you're an athlete, a parent, or a coach, make sure you tune into the episode, grab a notebook, and I look forward to seeing you in the episode. Enjoy. Hey, Don, what's up? Welcome to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. Super excited to have you on finally. I know I've heard a bunch of your conversations with Erica and other people around, so I'm excited to bring your wisdom and knowledge to my audience.
Thanks, Shay. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Nice. So let's just get into, I want to kind of start with your coaching background and how you got into recruiting with Sports Recruiting USA, because I know you're pretty much the head honcho over there. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the recruiting world.
The coaching bit was kind of a typical, they heard that I had played. My 5-year-old wanted to play soccer. They told me my 5-year-old's too young, but they'll let him play if I agree to coach. So,
of course.
So I got suckered into it. And I said, I know nothing about coaching. Even though I'd played my whole life and I was probably one of only 5 people in the entire league of hundreds that had actually played only soccer their life, I didn't know anything about coaching. But they sent me to coaching school. I liked it. Went to the next one. Pretty soon, before you know it, 10 or so years later, I'm coaching in college. I'm coaching professionally in the pro levels and the old USL A-League levels. They used to call it A-League.
Yeah.
And I've got my A license and I'm teaching classes for the Federation. And this is what I'm doing for a living. So fast forward 30 years later, I guess. And I had enough. It was just time for a change, and it took all of my knowledge that I had garnered from being able to, I'd coached junior college, I had coached NAIA, I'd coached Division III, I'd coached Division II, I had coached the men professionally, and I kind of brought all that knowledge into being an agent. So me and my partner have this agency, Sports Recruiting USA. We have an amazing staff with us that we were adding it up the other day. It's about 250, 300 years worth of college coaching experience combined.
Wow, incredible.
We are spread out all throughout the world. I've got a staff member flying down to Mexico. He's in Mexico right now in Monterrey. Then he's headed to Colombia. I've got another staff member there. We've got events that go on in England. And then we're all over the United States. I've got staff members in Florida and Virginia and California and Arizona, and just keep going. Missouri, all over the country. The idea being that we think we know what we're looking at after all of our experience in the game, and we can be honest with parents and players and give them a sense of really where they would maybe fit into the college landscape, what their right fit would be, so that maybe they stop chasing. Certain kids shouldn't be going to Stanford camps, and they shouldn't be going to UCLA camps, and they shouldn't be going to, but they're going by the tens of thousands to these levels of these camps that are the level of what that coach needs to win a national championship at the highest levels in the country is beyond what that player is currently capable of. And yet they're chasing the wrong schools anyways. They're just, nobody will tell them no. Nobody will tell them bad idea. Nobody would tell them you should be looking at these schools or this school, or how about this school? And very few are looking at the end, Shay, saying, well, what do you want to do? What are you trying to be? What are you trying to accomplish with your life? And the kid says, I've got a real good example of a girl who, the first phone call, she says, I want to send rockets into space. I want to be a rocket scientist. Well, the first school that came to my mind was Embry-Riddle. And then knowing her level, there's 2 Embry-Riddles. There's one in Florida and there's one in Arizona. And the one in Arizona suited her playing abilities better and will get her where she wants to go in life later on. So connecting players to the places that will help them become the best versions of themselves that they want to be is what we are all about. We're not all about the ego of, look at our kid playing at Stanford. Who cares? Because at the end of the day, the kid's going to graduate from Stanford and they're going to go on and get a job in the real world probably. And the kid at Embry-Riddle is going to go on and get a job in the real world probably. And in 20 years' time, it's nothing but memories. But yet their degree is still working for them.
Absolutely.
20 years from now. More important to us that kids are happy, parents are happy, coaches are happy, than it is about a kid getting to wear a sweatshirt and go, ooh, look at me, I'm wearing a sweatshirt from the school that I may never even get to play soccer at. Which is fine too. Yeah. I have no problem with the kid going to school. I have a girl recently, I've had a couple recently, but I got a girl at Baylor playing soccer, that's fine. I got a girl at Baylor that's never going to play soccer there, but that's her dream school. Yeah. And mom and dad could swing it financially, and it's where she wants to be. And she visited, and she's going to be happy being at Baylor, having nothing to do with soccer. For me, that's okay too.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's really why I wanted to have you on, because there's a lot of garbage and ego in the recruiting industry. And I feel like you're someone, one of very few people that I personally trust and look to for recruiting advice, because you do put the human first over the status of Stanford and D1. Like, I love that you've just right from the get-go brought up that it's about, hey, what do you want to do? Like, that's the first thing. And then from there, we can find a school that's actually going to fit you and make you happy versus just look good on a Twitter post.
That's the goal at the end of the day. And unfortunately, social media is look, it's here to stay. And it's fine. And I think kids should applaud themselves when they accomplish a goal. I think parents should be proud of their kids. I also get concerned, though, that other kids end up feeling like, what's wrong with me then?
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you're just chasing the wrong schools. Nothing wrong with you. Do what you want and do what makes you happy. And whether it's a big school, small school, Division I, Division III, I personally don't care about. Our kids are every year. In fact, we'll be releasing it very soon. All of our women are placed for 2023. So now we're compiling the stats, and you will see that about a third of our kids go D1 and just under a third go D2. And then we've got a good number of NAIA and junior college kids, and then a chunk of Division III kids. It's very well spread out. Yeah. It's because we don't care. Because the label means zero to us as a company. Awesome. Means nothing.
I love that. And like, too, speaking of social media, I would love to hear your thoughts on the role that social media plays with recruiting. Like, is it something where kids need to be posting on social media and DMing coaches, or is that not necessarily necessary? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, we have to have ways to get. Look, social media provides a method of communication that we didn't have 15 years ago, really, with the general public. So it's just another method of communication. And as with all communication, we have to be aware of the difference between true, honest, I'm trying to talk to you communication, and you're just one of 1,600 people that I'm spamming. And so it's not social media itself that is inherently evil or good. It's how it's utilized. So look, before social media, we had kids sending spammy emails to coaches. Email is a great form of communication, but if you're going to CC 75 coaches on the same email, it's probably spam. It's not, it falls into that category, not good communication. And I think social media is the same way. So we have two issues as I see it. One is, do kids need to post on social media to get recruited? That's 1,000% no. That's stupid. It would be like saying, does a kid have to have the most expensive cleats in order to play soccer? No, you might help you be a little better, probably doesn't, but maybe it does. And, so I don't know, maybe that's probably a bad example.
No,
but
it's a good example. We'll take it.
Do you have to have something to make something else happen? No, because we're humans and there's a lot of different ways to accomplish certain things in life. Can it be helpful? Yes. Is it helpful when a coach tags Pitt and Notre Dame and Stanford and USC? And it's zero helpful. In fact, it made it worse because now everybody knows you're not really interested in that school. You're interested in a lot of schools. And sometimes it's the craziest to me, Shay, when you can't draw the correlation between the types of schools that a kid tags. So I was at Cal State East Bay. If you tag Stanford and Notre Dame and USC and North Carolina and Cal State East Bay, where did Cal State East Bay come into that list? We're a state school. There's hundreds and thousands of state schools that aren't necessarily an MIT, in the world of academics. So why does that go in there? And that's the hard part, is how, for me and my job, is getting parents and kids to grasp, why are you like that school? Why are you interested in the school? What about that school excites you? What about that school doesn't excite you? Is there some downside to that school? And it might be the area of the school. It might be it's in a really small town and you're from a big city and you think that would drive you nuts. Or it could be reversed. Or you're a real small town in Ohio and you want to go to LIU on Long Island. It's like, you have an idea what you're getting into in Long Island, New York. You have an idea what your life is going to be like. It's not going to be anything remotely like what you had in small town Ohio, USA. Can you deal with it? And I've had kids come back from that situation and go, yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. So
what I'm gathering from this is basically quality over quantity. So instead of mass emailing or tagging a bunch of schools, it's probably a better idea to get really focused on a couple schools that you're actually interested in and have done your research, and reach out to them in a very personalized way. Is that kind of what we're getting here?
Yeah. So what I tend to do with my clients, and I would say parents and club coaches, ask your kids to do the same thing. I'd have an idea of a school. So let me go back to Cal State East Bay for a minute, because it's a very middle of the road soccer in the country. It's very good Division II conference. But if you play Stanford, we would get smashed 10 times out of 10. Okay, it's not that level. But when we would go play, Holy Names, out of business, I don't have to worry about upsetting them anymore. One of the schools we've lost, we would smash them 9 times out of 10. So all 3 college programs, 3 very different levels. And if I had a very mid-level player who I think, could play in that conference, but by sophomore, junior year, this kid could help Cal State East Bay, then I go to the parents and the kid and I said, I need you to research a school. They have dormitories, they have good accessibility to international airports, good transportation, pretty safe town, great kinesiology program, very good business program in the heart of the Bay Area. If you like them, I think they'd like you. You tell me what you think of the school. Do some research. Then they come back to me and they say, oh, I really like this. Cool. Then I reach out to the coach. And I can say now, with all honesty, We have a player who's done their research. I've talked to them about Cal State East Bay. They know all about it. They've done all the research they can. If this is a player you like, Robin, they would be very interested in talking to you. That approach, I get a response from the coaches nearly 100% of the time. If I send out just an email that's, hey, I've got a kid who wants to study kinesiology. Do you like this kid? And don't mention anything about the school. Don't mention anything about the research. Don't mention anything about being able to afford them. Don't mention anything about wanting to be in the Bay Area. It drops to about 50%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So with like kind of getting into a lot of the myths with college recruiting and myths or dangerous advice, like what are some of the biggest myths that you have heard, that it's getting taught to parents or the parents are taking on? Would love to hear about that because there is kind of can be a little bit of a messy, muddy area. So I want to clear some of these crazy myths out and, let's insert some truth there.
We actually did a podcast, Shay, called The Myths of College Soccer, and it was 4 of us former college coaches just talking about some of these myths. And here's the number one piece of advice that I say is the worst piece of advice that anybody's ever given anybody, and it's the most pervasive one, and that is this. Find the school that you want to go to, the schools that you're most interested in, and contact those coaches. And it's almost word for word exactly where they leave it. So let me now as a student begin that exercise. God, I'd love to go to Stanford. I'd love to go to Santa Clara. I'd love to go to UCLA. I'd love to go to Notre Dame. That would be cool. I'd love to go to Ohio. I'd love to go to Wisconsin. And I just start listing schools because that's what I was told to do. And now I just start contacting all those schools, and $12,000 and 9 ID camps later, nobody likes me. It's because it was terrible advice, because it wasn't based on soccer. Look, if that's where you want to go to school, do not let sports stop you from going to your dream school.
Right.
If you get into your dream school and it's going to make a difference in your career and your life, there are club soccer teams. If soccer's really, go play club soccer at those schools. Don't sacrifice the next 40, 50 years of your life for 4 years of maybe not even getting off the bench, maybe getting off the bench. I don't know. But either way, even if it goes perfectly for you in the playing world, it's 4 years of your life.
Right.
That are going to affect the next 40 to 50 years of your life. What are you doing? We're making terrible decisions here when it comes to our lives and what planning means. So, don't let any sport stop you from doing what you want. But B, if you aren't capable of playing at those schools, why are you wasting everybody's time? But you never know. Maybe the coach will like me. Look, half these kids aren't even the best player on their club team, let alone the best player in their league, let alone the best player in their city, let alone the best player in their region, let alone the best player in the country, which is what Stanford gets. Because it's Stanford. Because academically, they can go the kid in China knows the name Stanford.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's why it's just so whether it's Princeton or Duke or Harvard or Stanford or MIT or Johns Hopkins or wherever it sits, if it's an extremely hard to get into school, if their acceptance rates are low, it's there for a reason. There's a demand and the supply. Cal State East Bay, 2.8 GPA. Unless it's the nursing program, you can get in. 2.8 GPA. You can get in. You're going to get accepted to school. There's 90-something% acceptance rate, as opposed to 3% at Johns Hopkins. So don't think the advice of just decide what schools you like and then contact all those coaches is very good advice. I would say that's, for me, that's probably my number one myth.
I like that because it doesn't, on the surface, it doesn't seem like bad advice. Like, oh yeah, it sounds logical. But when you look deeper, like what you're talking about, it just doesn't make sense, and it's a bit of a waste of time. So I like
if you want to play soccer, right?
Yeah, if you want to play, right.
Two different things.
Yeah.
Academics, soccer.
Soccer,
they have to mesh if
sure.
you want to play soccer or sports or whatever your sport is.
Right.
They have to mesh.
So how then would a player know, am I good enough to go to Cal East Bay, Utah State, like how do they know if they're good enough?
First advice I have is, how many games have you seen that team play?
Yeah.
None. Okay, well, there's a good starting spot.
Right.
With ESPN Plus, you can get almost any, and look, parents, but it's so much money. It's whatever, $12 a month or whatever it is. Hey, look, folks, you're spending $20,000 a year on your soccer, and you're going to spend another, I don't know, 12 minimum, 10 minimum just for housing and food, plus whatever else. So you're going to spend another $40,000 on your education, and you can't be bothered to watch soccer games in college when soccer is the most important thing in your life, you told me. It's so important, you can't see yourself playing in college, and yet you've seen 0 college soccer games in your life, or 1 or 2 or whatever. Right. You're not that serious. You really don't love the game that much. I don't think. I could be wrong.
No, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, like, how do you know if you're good enough? Well, have you seen them play? Have you seen the speed of play or the physicality? Like, that's kind of seems like a logical first step. Well, how do I know if I'm good enough? Go watch them.
Yeah, and television's great. It can be deceiving. I know that when I watch my Arsenal play, there are moments when I think I could have made that shot, when in reality I would never even go close. Because television's deceiving, right? Everybody's small, everything's slower, everything, but when you see it in person, and first time I ever went to an NBA game and I stood out there and watched them warm up, I said, holy, somebody that big should not be allowed to move that fast. It shouldn't be legal. How does this happen? Or my buddy Eric Barton, who he was a linebacker for the Raiders and the Browns and the Jets, and you stand next to this guy and oh my Lord. And how fast do you run? And he tells you, 4.40 or whatever. This is not possible. How is somebody weighing that much, that big, moving that fast? That's scary. So seeing kids in person, that's one of the reasons why college coaches really want to go scout kids in person. You get a better sense for the athleticism in person. For sure. When you see it. So going and seeing matches at varying levels of varying teams and varying divisions and getting a sense for what it looks like and feels like is a real good starting point. Because look, it's obvious even to a non-soccer aficionado when you go and see a kid and go, that kid's unbelievable.
For sure. Yeah.
Physically. I can't keep up with that.
Right. And so, in person is obviously way more powerful than, video or whatever. So what I guess would you say for the kid who isn't on ECNL, who isn't going to all these showcases, who maybe is a little bit removed from their dream schools? Would you say then that ID camps are a good idea for that person? Are ID camps a good idea at all? Kind of talk about ID camps in general.
2 ways that I use ID camps. One of them is the kid who cannot get off the kick of Notre Dame or Stanford and US. I say, okay, well, let's narrow this down. Where's your dream school? And it's like, so I had one of my clients, so my son has been coaching at North Carolina State. One of my clients said, what's your dream schools? Well, my real dream school is North Carolina State. Well, that's easy then. Easiest thing to do is to go to their camp, and I will notify the staff, and I'll notify him, and somebody will, honest to goodness, watch you and evaluate you. And if they think you fit, you're in. It's not that hard. They are looking for players in your position in that year, and then you'll know. And he went, and it didn't go very well, and he didn't end up there. Now he's at University of Dayton. So being able to know a couple of things. ID camps used one of two ways. One is, I'm not discouraging you from, if you really want to go to UCLA's camp, go to UCLA's camp. If you score 3 bicycle kicks and 2 diving headers and 5 smashing tackles and you are up and down the pitch and they want to see more of you, they will talk to you. Mm-hmm. They will find ways of talking to you at the camp, and they will find, I've been at camps where coaches walked up and said, what's it going to take to get you to come to school here? Because that player impressed so heavily and so much. So it can happen. Not how I recommend using ID camps. Here's how I recommend using them. The coach has seen your film package and they were so intrigued that they wanted to see maybe a full match link. And they've sat down as a staff. They've discussed what they see in you as a player. So impressed that they want to get you on a phone. So they get you on a phone call. And then the way it wraps up is, look, I'm not sure how we're going to get to see you play in person because you're not playing ECNL and you're not playing GA and you're not doing this. But we do have a camp. We've got 40 kids. My buddy at the University of San Francisco comes in. They have this camp every year where they narrow down hundreds of kids down to about 30. And then those 30 girls are vying for the 2-3 spots that they have open that year. So it's just 30 kids that they've pre-selected, and they're putting them through their paces, and they're very serious about what they are looking at. That is common amongst a lot of the larger schools. It's not the big general open camps that are open to everybody per se, although they are open to everybody. It just happens to be that it opens up on Sunday at midnight, and by 12:01, all 30 spots are filled.
Yeah.
Just happens to work out that way. And so those 30 kids come in, they compete. Love those kinds of ID camps. Okay. If that's the school you want, if you liked how the conversation went with the coach and a coach likes you, go to that camp, because you're going to need to get on campus anyways. You're going to want to be coached by those coaches at some point before you make a decision anyways. And so camps can be a great way to do that. But you can't do that times 30.
No.
That's your final 3, 4, 5 after doing all of your research, visiting different campuses. You've got it narrowed down. They've got it narrowed down. And every player just wants one of 3 answers: a yes, a no, or a maybe. And the maybe is, how do I turn it into a yes or no? Mm-hmm. What do I have to do to turn it into a yes or no, coach? And that question should be, and isn't asked, but should be asked of every single coach, that you get to that point where you're serious with them. Mm-hmm. And they're serious with you. What's it going to take to turn this into a yes or no, coach? Because I'm serious. If you offered me today, I would go to school here. I've done my research.
Yeah.
Camps can be good for that.
I was going to say, my guess is that most people that aren't working with an agency like yours are doing camps totally wrong. Maybe just showing up to the ones where there's, 12 coaches there, and they just show up and hope that they're good enough to get noticed. And they're probably I don't know if you would agree that that's probably the biggest way that parents throw away money in the recruiting process. Would you agree?
I think so. I think that, and I think in the big name leagues, going into every event with an expectation that something is going to happen for you.
Yeah.
And so you're spending all of this money traveling. I mean, I don't know. What would you say? Probably $2,000 to $5,000, $2,000 on the low end, $5,000 on the high end for league fees, for club fees. And then private trainers on top of that. Let's say it's another $1,000 a year. We'll keep it low. Yeah. So $5,000-6,000. But I'm telling you, I travel alone to Dallas Cup. That was $1,500. Mm-hmm. That's one event.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're doing 4 to 5 events a year. 1,500 times each event, so 6,000. So you're talking 15,000, 20,000 a year that parents are spending and expecting something to happen because my kid's playing in the highest league. And so I'm sitting there on a sideline with, what was that, a big GA event, huge one. It was the one right after COVID opened up, and I doubt there was a college in the nation of any name that anybody's ever heard of that wasn't there. They were all there. And one particular event, a player reached out to me and I went to a match to watch her. There must have been 200 coaches watching this match. And every coach I talked to was watching the same player. She was really good.
Yeah,
Same one that the parents
right.
reached out to me. She was, 5'11" center back and had every tool that you would ever want in a center back. And I can't remember where she's committed to now too, but it is a top 10 school in the country. Can't remember which one. But my point was, I'm sitting there thinking in my head, these poor kids, the other, what would it be, 25, 30 kids that are playing today? They think these coaches are watching them. Nobody's paying any attention. The kid literally could do something amazing and everybody's still watching this center back. And they're going, yeah, that's fine. But the kids think that they're being watched. They're not. That kid's being watched because she's 10 times the athlete you are.
Okay, so there's a parent listening and their kid is the one who's not being watched. So how can they get watched or be watched?
Yeah, you've got, again, so now we'll go back and you've got to find the schools that fit you in that system. Which schools fit you? Because if you're a 5'2" goalkeeper, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Straight off the bat by the physicality of it. And people, well, Don, you're so, you can't say that. And look at Nick Ramundo and look at Saskia Weber and look at these players of our history that weren't tall. And it's like, okay, they were some of the most phenomenal athletes I've ever seen in my life. Saskia could fly like Superman, even though she was shorter. Had nothing to do with Saskia being short or tall or anything. She's a hell of an athlete. Your kid's not that. Your kid's 5'2" and not that. So I don't know why are you comparing yourself to, who really reached back? Spud Webb? Do you remember that name in the history? Yeah. Won the slam dunk contest as a whatever he is, 5 foot whatever guy. Yeah, but come on, who else has a 52-inch vertical leap in the world?
Yeah, nobody.
Right.
Very few.
Michael Jordan. Okay, there we go. There's another one, but he's tall. So now how does this work for you? And then so knowing the realities just of what a college roster is made up of, and that can be researched online, by the way. And if you see that the school has never had a 5'2" goalkeeper, chances are they're not looking for 5'2" goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Right? Or 5'5" center backs. But probably if they've never had one, they're probably not looking for one. You're looking at the wrong school. Now, if you can find a school where the last 3 center backs have been 5'5", all right, there's a start.
Right.
There's a start. That coach doesn't care.
Is it even like, as far as looking at rosters, let's say you're a midfielder, you look at the roster and there's already 5 sophomore midfielders. Like, maybe, is that something that you encourage your players to look at as far as positions?
Sort of. First, the next thing you look at is, and takes more research and takes more time, look at the statistics of how many minutes that player has played and what they've contributed to the team. Yeah. So just because they have 7 forwards or 7 goalkeepers, I've known coaches with 4 goalkeepers that are looking for another goalkeeper because 3 of the 4 are worthless to them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Helping them win.
That makes sense.
Those numbers don't tell us the story as much as the statistics might tell us a little more complete picture. And then a conversation with the coach would tell them even more. So if I'm a midfielder and they have 6 midfielders and they're all sophomores and freshmen, one might think they're all set. Except if those players aren't helping that coach win, then the coach isn't all set.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Right. Okay. No, I'm glad I asked that question because
it's a good question. Yeah.
Thank you. Because you do look at that like, oh, they already have 6 midfielders. Like, what's the point? But it's a lot deeper than that. And again, what I'm getting from, me asking, okay, how do they get seen? It's not leaving it up to chance. And again, it's starting with doing your research, really finding the schools that you're a good fit for and vice versa, and actually being targeted in that rather than just, oh, I just hope people see me. Because I think a lot of times that's what happens is you just hope that you get seen and maybe, you get lucky and it happens. But that probably doesn't happen very often, I'm guessing.
And Shay, the process is, I get caught in between thoughts and ideas because when I hear a seventh or eighth grader, sixth, seventh, eighth grader talking about getting recruited, my visceral response as a parent and as a coach is shut up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Go play soccer. Just go play soccer and play. On the other hand, if you at least think about it a little bit, it gives you more time to go, we're going on vacation at Santa Barbara or somewhere down there, and I think Santa Barbara is going to be playing, and maybe we could squeeze a game in as part of that so that I can get a feel for what it looks like. And I'm in sixth grade, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but it's like going to the ID camps and getting all stressed out about it as a sixth, seventh, eighth grader. That just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, we handle maybe 3 to 4 or 5 freshmen a year. Very rarely do we bring in a freshman. Why? I just think they're too young in general. However, if I see a stud, look, I can tell you a 14, 13-year-old stud. I can't tell you if they're going to be serious and continue to develop. I can't tell you if their mentality is going to be in line. And this is your thing where you understand that at a certain point of our sporting development, everybody can kick a ball, everybody can receive a ball, everybody can pass a ball, everybody can head a ball, everybody understands the basic positions and where to be. The difference maker becomes 80% of it is mental and 20% of it is physical at a certain point at a high enough level.
That makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
And so I don't know where that development's going to happen. Let's face it, 6th, 7th, 8th grade kids haven't even really started dating yet. The final stages of puberty really haven't kicked in yet. The kid really doesn't know who they are yet. They don't really have a sense for what their life is going to be. So on one hand, I go too young. On the other hand, I talk out of the other side of my mouth and I go, yeah, but you can think about it and you can go watch a game or two and you can begin to assess it. But really it starts sophomore year. I mean, sophomore year, we get our license, right? Most of us, they get a license, maybe our first jobs. We start to get some sense of independence and we start to understand who we are as people. And we start to understand a list of tick boxes of what is important in our life. And we're just trying to find a school that ticks most of the boxes. I doubt you're going to find anything in life that ticks 100% of your boxes all the time.
Right.
But it's which one ticks the most and which one feels right. And I often do equate finding the perfect college with falling in love. Why does this person feel different to us than that person? Why does this relationship feel different than all those other relationships? Fact is, I have no idea.
And
it feels different.
I was going to say, I love that you brought that up because sometimes it's not all the pros and cons and this logical stuff. A lot of times it really is just like a feeling, right? It's just like, this just feels right. And that's actually how I made my decision. And I ended up transferring, but I'm glad I made that decision. It was all just based off the feeling that I got versus on paper, Utah State looked better, but I got the feeling that VCU was the right choice for me at that time. And so I think that's so important to, like, number one, when you're 8th grade, 7th grade, you don't really know what the heck you want out of life because you're going through puberty. You don't even know yourself. As you get to your sophomore year, you start to learn a little bit more about yourself and what you actually want out of life. And then too, you can make better decisions based off those feelings because you are more in tune with who you actually are.
I like it. Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Love that. So I want to talk about parents a little bit and how involved, and I know there's probably not a cut and dry answer here, but how involved should parents be in this whole process?
I think they have to be very involved in it. I hate it that everybody wants the parents to sit on the sidelines, shut up, and let their 15-year-old make all the decisions. This is terrible parenting. But there is such thing as over-involved. Look, it's just it's raising your kids, right? It's allowing your kids to make mistakes. It's allowing your kids to have opinions, but it's also telling your kids when their opinion's a dumb decision based on something that is not logical. It's okay to tell your kids no. It's okay to tell your kids to put it on hold or slow it down or speed it. It's okay. And it's okay to let your kids make mistakes with college coaches as they're talking to them. It's okay. I don't think there's a college coaching friend that I have, and it's hundreds, that expect kids to be a 22-year-old adult with loads of experience and come through this perfectly. We're expecting kids to make mistakes, and we're expecting kids to say something silly or ask a silly question. Most of us that got into coaching because we like the idea of teaching young people how to be better people.
Yeah.
If I was into art, I would probably be teaching it through art. If I was into the violin, I'd probably be teaching young people how to be better people through use of the violin as a tool. For me, soccer's just a tool. It's all it is. It's a tool of something that can teach us so much about life in general. And it can help mold and shape a young person into being the adult that they're going to be. And I think parents have to have a say in that. I think where parents get in trouble, social media, parents, do not run your kid's social media account, monitor it. Don't run it, monitor it. But my kid doesn't have time. Then they're a bad candidate to be a collegiate athlete.
Yeah.
If they can't handle high school, living at home where they don't have to shop for groceries and they don't have to cook their own food and they don't have to worry about getting up in the morning and they don't have to worry about when to go to bed and they don't have to pay a bill and they don't have to do any of that and they still can't manage school and soccer, they might be a bad candidate for playing collegiately a sport, which is a full-time job, as I would say. 20 hours a week soccer, 20 hours a week studying, plus a whatever, it's 50 hours a week.
Absolutely.
And so you can't handle that in high school living at home, we have a problem. So don't run your kids' social media accounts. Don't tell your kids what they should and should not want out of life. Ask them questions. Ask them a lot of questions. Take them on some campus visits, like I said. Introduce them to find people in the field that they want to go in. They want to be going into accounting, and you have an accountant friend of yours. Let them sit down and talk to that accountant, and what would their daily life be like, and ask them questions, or whatever else your kid wants to be. I don't know, but I think the parent's job is to guide and to help their kids make good decisions, not take over the process and rob their kids of the opportunity to make mistakes and grow.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that last little bit, where it's like, don't tell your kids what they do or don't want. Like, only they know what they want, but it's about asking the questions and just supporting them through it. And I love that you said that. That was really valuable and powerful. So thank you for that bit. Hopefully parents, you might need to rewind that because that was good stuff. Cool. So kind of one of my last questions I wanted to ask was, I think a really good one is like, what are the big characteristics that you see with the kids that are successful in your program? And let's talk more so like off the field here. Like, what are some of those characteristics and mentality that those players have that you think, that the other players should strive to have if they want to have a successful college career and even get recruited?
I think I can't go away from the field stuff completely, but I'm going to keep it more towards the mental side of it.
Okay.
The first thing is falling in love with the game. Mm-hmm. If you don't really love this game, you will not be successful in college. And that could be baseball, it could be track, it could be basketball, it could be water polo. It doesn't matter what the sport is. If you're going to work, in a sense, for a person that this is their whole world. Soccer is their whole world. They want to talk English Premier League. They want to talk NWSL. They want to talk MLS. They want to talk European Champions League. They want to talk about this. And if you hate that, probably not a great way to build a relationship, and your relationship with your coach is never going to be what you hope it would be. And their interest in you as a human being is going to be limited because this major piece of their life is something you're not interested in. So just translate that to anything in any relationship in life. Absolutely. How is the relationship with your partner and your spouse you're going to be if you don't share things in common with them, right? Yeah. I love movies. They hate movies. How is this going to go for the rest of your life? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the love of the game is something that I fear for a good chunk of these kids is getting shoved aside because the goal is not to love the game and to continue playing as long as possible. The goal is to get into college and get a scholarship. That's the goal.
Yeah, but without the love of the game, it's like, what's the point, number one? And are you really going to work as hard as you can if you don't love what you're doing? Like, you look at the best athletes in the world. I'm sure there are some, that didn't love the game, Andre Agassi being one of them. But you look at most, it's like they love what they do. And the reason why they're so good is probably because they do love it so much.
And I've never interviewed Andre Agassi. Have you had the chance to do that?
No, but I've read his book and he absolutely hated tennis.
Yeah. Did he hate it? Did he talk about hating it his entire life from day one?
Yeah, pretty much. It was kind of his dad that forced him to do it.
I haven't read his book. That's unusual, and I hadn't even heard that story, Shay.
Yeah, it's very unusual. So that's like but most of the time, it's like they love it,
Yes, they love it. Again, that's highly unusual. For somebody to spend that many hours at something they hate is bizarre. So human behavior says that we tend to spend more time doing the things that we love. So if I saw my child spending more time I did. Honestly, I just wasn't listening to my kids. My middle son, it was music. When he was 2, 3, he would take Tinker Toys, put them together and pretend they were a guitar. We just weren't paying attention. We're putting them in swimming and baseball like we did with our oldest son and soccer and all of that. And at about 10 years old, 12 years old, he finally said, enough of this. And by 14, he was on a record label. By 16, he was traveling the world, doing European tours and U.S. tours. And it's music. It was music that he loved. Yeah. And we just had to listen and we just had to pay attention to that. Most of the time, we spend time doing the things we love the most and the things that are most important to us. So, I would say that's number one. Number two, the kids just love soccer. They just can't give it up. They can't see themselves living without this game. Number two, they tend to be self-motivated. It's an intrinsic motivation that's coming through to them. They aren't playing because of their friend anymore. At some point, of course, they, 5, 6, 7, little Johnny, little Susie, we're playing with them, and they're our friends, and we hang out together, and we go to school together, or my brother plays, or my sister plays, or my dad played. There's all of these external motivational reasons why that uniform looks really cool. I want to play there. Boy, that's where all the big kids are playing. I'd love to do that someday. All of that's external motivational reasons. The minute, if that's the real reason you're doing it, cut that thing off and your motivation is gone. How much are you going to love it? And this whole speech and thought and idea that I'm giving right now actually came from Dr. Colleen Hacker. I was doing one of my licenses and she came in. She was Tony DeChico's coach, sports psychologist for the U.S. women's national team at the time, I think. And she was talking about the difference between external and intrinsic motivation and extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, and gave a couple really good stories about how we can actually kill kids' motivation through external factors when we think we're doing good. But we're not, If you score this week, I'll take you out for an ice cream. It's like, shouldn't your kid want to score goals because your kid wants to score goals, not because of the ice cream? And nothing wrong with an ice cream, but that's, aren't we, what kind of a message are we sending subliminally to our children? Sure. That type of thing. And the kids that I know that are the most successful clients they have, I don't have to ask them to call me. I don't have to beg them for an appointment. Their sense of timing is really good. They understand when they're stuck on something, they need to get a hold of me, and they contact me. They're proactive in their process. They're not relying on me to be a miracle worker. By the way, I'm not a genie in the bottle. You can't pay me $2,500 and then magically rub the bottle and all of your dreams come true. This is not a cheap version of the UCLA scandal. That's not what this is. I can't just buy my way into whatever you want to have happen in life. That's generally not how life works. And even when it works, I don't think Felicity Huffman would say it worked very well.
No, it didn't work.
So, bottom line, and by the way, her kid's got to be the most embarrassed kid on planet Earth. And I'm so dumb my parents had to buy my way into UCLA. Is not a good message to send to your children either.
No,
parents,
not at
and
all.
same thing with ECNL and GA. And if your kid's not good enough, just understand your kid's not good enough, and can we support them in what they really are interested in doing? Sports should not define you. Sports are something you do. Like mowing the lawn is something you do. Because I have a nice lawn doesn't mean that defines who I am as a human being. The fact that I have a well-manicured lawn. I don't, by the way. But that's another story. The point is that I think kids have to have this own internal self engine, this own internal clock that runs and ticks at a certain beat in order to play college sports. Not everybody, Shay, has the same engine to compete in sports at a level in which your coach gets fired if you don't win.
Right.
It creates a whole different set of pressures on everybody when that's the case. And this is probably the first time in a kid's life. Look, even most youth coaches, I know lots of great youth coaches, first of all, but I know lots of terrible youth coaches who still won't get fired because in their town, in their area, they're still the one with the highest level license or the most qualified person around. So they're probably going to keep their job. Most youth coaches don't get fired for not winning games.
Right.
But college coaches, that's the first level.
Yep. And so it's
kids
really
have to want to do it. They've got to have that engine. And I've noticed that my kids that are successful have an engine.
Yeah, it's like that. Like they take ownership over it versus having you just I'm in Don's program and he's just going to do everything for me. It's really number one, the love of it, which creates that internal motivation, and then taking ownership of it, and like you said, having that engine. So I love that.
Yeah, and the owner and it's simple things that my poor son, and somewhere out there's an Inside College Soccer podcast we did where I interviewed my son, who graduated from high school, was supposed to go play for Sonoma State. They had just won the Division II national championship. Ended up got invited to come to FC Cologne to trial and to get a Bundesliga trial with their under 23s. And got an invite then to go to England for 2 weeks. So we thought, perfect, he'll go and train in England, and then he'll go to Germany, and it'll be a good way to get acclimatized to a European time zone before he goes in trials. And he called me up in 2 weeks and said they want me to stay for 2 years in England. So he ends up not going to college. He ends up playing in England for 2 years, bombed out at FC Cologne, went back to England, played for 2 years, and then ended up playing for BJ Craig, who's at UNLV now, but played for him at St. Francis in Loretto, Pennsylvania. And had a great career, had fun playing, all of that. And I only tell you that because we're talking about this internal motivation thing. By his junior year, it was door shutting at 5:30 a.m., running down to school with the ball about a mile away, knocking it against the wall for an hour and a half, coming back home, showering, go to school, after school, bring the ball back out of the locker room, smash it against the wall for another hour, take off to practice, come home, do his homework, and then 3 days a week going to a sports performance specialist who was working with him on that. And I didn't ask him to do none of it. In fact, I told him I'd prefer you don't do it. I prefer
Yeah.
you not play. And he was a goalkeeper and I was a goalkeeper coach. And I would prefer you not ask me on my one day off to come out and train you extra. But if you ask me, I won't say no because I'm your dad and I love you. So we'll do it. But many a times it's like, don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. If this isn't what you want, that's perfectly fine with me. Don't care if you ever play soccer, as far as I'm concerned. And that combination between supporting your kid and not caring what your kid does, I think is something that kids need to have on that parental end of it too. I think when the parents are just too much we joke here, but it's not a joke. The number one red flag for us, and I'm diverting back to the parent thing, sorry. But the number one red flag for us is when a parent's telling us how good their kid is. Gushing and gushing about how good their kid is. That's a massive red flag for us.
Yeah, I mean, because there's probably a parent listening saying, well, why? So why is it a red flag for you guys?
That is a sign that we might have a parent who is unrealistic about what their players' abilities are, because it is so few players that we come across that make us go, wow.
Okay.
And I wasn't even coaching at the Stanford level.
Right.
I wasn't even coaching at that level. The men's side, full pro level, coached it, was involved with it. I know what those guys who played in the Olympics, I know what that looks like. On the women's side, I had kids that played at Stanford. I had Lindsay Dickerson, goalkeeper at Stanford. Her pictures up on the wall here holding a national championship trophy. And I had a girl go to Duke and played against Stanford when Stanford won it. Duke won it and beat Stanford in a national championship. I had a goalkeeper on the bench of each of those teams. I know what those schools want and what those players look like. And when I hear the parents raving about how great their kids are, and I look at the film and I go, look, your kid's very average, tells me you have no sense of what it takes. And that's a problem for me, because you're going to continually want to go, well, but her teammate's going to Notre Dame, and I swear she beats her every day in training. Or this girl in that league, she shuts her down in high school, and she's going to UCLA, and she shuts her down. Okay, mom and dad. Okay.
Yeah. That reminds me of my dad. I played against this UCLA girl, or I played with Kaylee Ojai, and it doesn't mean I'm nearly as good as Kaylee Ojai or Watt now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Yeah, I love this and I love what you do and your honesty and your realness, because there are a lot of people that are going to bullshit you, parents, and say, oh, your kid is good enough to go here and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is just because they're not good enough to go to a school, we're not being rude. It's just the truth. Doesn't mean they're not good enough as human beings. They're just not good enough to go to that school.
Well, parents have to understand, isn't it good for my business if I'm calling up Michelle Leonard at Baylor and going, I got another kid for you, and then I'm posting everywhere, look, I got a kid at Baylor, right? Yeah. And if I'm calling Anson, or if I'm calling anybody, and that kid can actually play there, and that kid impacts that program, and that kid is on television, and that kid's competing for a national championship, and I'm congratulating him with the company tag and saying it's my client, don't you think I want that?
Yeah.
That would be better for my business. Yes, I want that.
Right.
The fact is, for me to tell you that that's what you can have when you can't, does me zero good. All it does is kill my credibility with the coaches,
For sure.
and with the parents, and with the players, and anybody else that those people will complain to and listen that I just bullshitted them into taking their money. It does me no good if I'm playing the long game.
Right. And I mean,
our business, we've been around for 13 years, Shay.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in, I want to be in business for another 13, right?
Right.
I don't want to be out of business in 5 years. So it's really important. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely. I had a kid who I told not to go to a school, and he ended up starting his freshman year.
Wow.
What I didn't think about was that they converted him from striker to right back.
Right.
I was talking about as a 10.
Uh-huh.
As a 10, you cannot play at that school, and they agreed with me.
Right.
But they thought he was athletic enough to convert him to a right back, and now he loves being a right back. But at that time, if you had told him that you're going to be converted to a right back, he'd say, I don't want to go play for you, coach.
Okay.
Because he thought himself as a 10. So I made mistakes.
For sure.
And I haven't thought things out far enough. And the kid ended up starting for them and played for him for 3 years. Now just transferred to Wisconsin. The kid's going to get everything he ever wanted. I knew he was good. I didn't think he was that good.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's like a good mistake. It's like, yeah, I made a mistake, but it's like, it ended up really great, for that kid.
Yeah, the one I don't want to the mistake I don't want to make is telling a kid, yeah, good deal, go to that school, great deal. And then the kid never plays for all 4 years.
For sure. Yeah.
That's the mistake I don't want to make.
Yeah.
So I play on the side of caution if I have to pick a side.
That makes sense. Yeah. And again, yeah, I love what you do. And I want parents who are listening, if their kid wants to, play in college, like I would love for them to, reach out to you. So tell us where, the best place for parents to get more information and reach out and learn more about how you can help.
Well, the website's as simple as you can be. It's srusasoccer.com. That's short for Sports Recruiting USA. So if you just put us into a search engine, you'll get a lot of things that pop up. Twitter is my diary. If you have a journal, I do journaling. I just happen to do it on Twitter live. You can tell what I'm working on that day. So if you follow me at Don_K_Williams on Twitter, you can same handle for Instagram, although I'm not very good at posting pics on Instagram. I'm not a great Instagrammer. Not enough bikini pictures of myself or something. I don't know. Facebook, we have Facebook groups. We have 2 Facebook groups, parents and recruiting advice for parents and players. SRUSA on Instagram. On Facebook, you can find us. So those are probably the most common ways to get a hold of me.
Sweet. Well, we'll link up all of that for them to check out. But thanks again, Don, for coming on and sharing your experience and your wisdom. And this was a super valuable episode, and I really enjoyed it and learned a lot. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Shay. And when I'm in Sacramento next time, I'll give you a ring. We'll go get coffee.
Let's do it. Thanks, Don.
All right. Take care.